Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the ICLA podcast, Licensed to Lead Business Behind the Brand. I am your host, Jason Harbison. Excited to have you join us here for another episode. And joining me today on the ICLA podcast, Licensed to Lead Business Behind the Brand, is one of our great friends and our newest Hall of Fame inductees, Marty Ludwig. Martin Ludwig is what you'll find him on LinkedIn and around the interwebs, but all of our ICLA membership knows him as Marty. Marty is the Associate Vice President of Trademark Licensing and Brand Engagement at the University of Cincinnati, and I'm welcome and honored to have him on the podcast today. So let's welcome in Marty.
Thank you. I appreciate having me on here.
Absolutely. Marty joined us today on the Sewing Concepts Hot Market Hotline, like all of our guests. So appreciate them for helping support the ICLA podcast. So, Marty, I don't know if you remember this or not, but when I first started getting involved with ICLA in 2013, you were the president. So you were kind of my first introduction to the organization. So kind of full circle for me, and really excited to have you on with us so we can chat today. But for those that don't know you, let's just start out by getting to know you a little bit on a personal level. I know Cincinnati is your hometown, so can you just kind of walk us through some of your formative years there on the banks of the Ohio?
Well, it's my hometown. I was raised in Cincinnati, but I was actually born in South Carolina.
Okay.
Dad was in the Marines, so we were Naval Air Station Beaufort, right up by Hilton Head. But parents were from Cincinnati, so they came back home when he left the Marines, and raised in Cincinnati. That's where the whole Ludwig extended family is from. So raised here. Thankfully, I'm of a generation where we didn't have cell phones and cameras and everybody tracking your movements. So
yeah.
I'll leave a lot of those things in the past. And, I'm one of 5 boys, so we got into our fair share of scrapes and learning experiences, as we like to put it.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I know it's awesome to be able to grow up in a place and then be able to work there, spend your career there.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. I'm not exactly in that situation, but not far away, so it's kind of nice too. I know in your acceptance speech, as you were welcomed into the Hall of Fame, you talked a lot about family. I know family is very important to you. Mary Beth comes with you to events sometimes, and you're always talking about what Martin and Christine are up to. So just give us a little family update. What are all the family folks up to?
Well, Mary Beth has been retired now. This is coming up on her 4th year. 31 years as a nurse at UC's medical center. So they hired her right out of college, and she stayed through that. So she's enjoying retirement, scaring me about what life looks like in retirement. She's having a great time. I just don't know what I'm going to do as my second thing, if and when I ever get that far. Martin and Christine, they're doing fantastic. Christine actually today starts our first day of classes. She's coming back to get her master's in marketing from the university. Both of them are got their undergrads, and Martin finished with his master's here going on 6 years ago. This will be his 6th year out. So Martin recruits nurses for our healthcare affiliate, and our daughter works in marketing for a local marketing firm and is coming back to get her master's degree.
Oh, that's awesome. Fun to keep it in the family, keep everybody around close. I know y'all are enjoying that. So just talk a little bit about how you got into licensing. I know you, I think it was finance was your undergrad degree.
Yes.
And we talk all the time about how people stumble into licensing. Very few people go, I want to be a licensing person in my career. So how did it go for you? How did you get into the business?
So I grew up wanting to be in business. My uncle owns the largest independent insurance agency in the area. My dad worked for that company, and that was the whole plan was I got to go into business and maybe go in the insurance game. Insurance really isn't my thing, so I found a different path when I was in undergrad. I went more finance, and I was fortunate enough to start with the largest or the oldest registered advisory firm in the country was based in Cincinnati, and I was able to get hired by Bartlett and Company right out of college. I was working there for a handful of years, and they sold to Legg Mason. Job was going to be offered to move to Baltimore with them. Mary Beth was already working her career, so didn't want to do that. Moved over to another firm several years in. They transitioned. So I landed at the university because I wanted to work somewhere where I could really sink roots and kind of grow. I didn't think the university was going to get sold, so thought there was pretty good chances of having a chance to stick around here. And then I figured a way to work my way into a business role. So I started in research administration. I was doing that for a handful of years. moved over to manage a clinical department, and then did that for 1.5, 2 years, and then had an opportunity to join the intellectual property office. And that was starting where I was really shifting into more into business functions, licensing, research technologies, and things like that. That started getting me into the real licensing part of the business. And at the time, my boss, Ann Chasser, who had formerly started the licensing program at Ohio State, she was my boss here in the intellectual property office. UC was kind of looking at the licensing program. It was managed in the general counsel's office, and they wanted to get it out of there into a more business function to try and find a way to grow revenue. So they did a research project, and they ended up going to my boss and said, gee, you started at Ohio State, you want to take it? And she's like, been there, done that, but I got a guy. So she asked me if I'd be interested in adding that to my portfolio. And as it grew, I wasn't able to continue doing technology licensing and trademark licensing, so I just shifted everything over to managing the brand. And here we are today.
As they say, the rest is history.
Exactly.
I was talking to someone earlier today about when somebody's got a guy. So it's always good to know, good to be when you're the guy that somebody's got. Like,
right.
I got a guy for that. So
yeah.
So obviously it's been a Hall of Fame career. You're in the ICLA Hall of Fame. So you've got to accomplish a lot to get there, of course. So I know there have been projects, there have been different things along the way, but what are some milestones that maybe stand out as defining moments of your licensing career?
That's pretty broad. I think first I would say data analytics. So again, this leans back to me being a finance guy. I'm kind of a numbers nerd. So shortly after I started managing the program, I started looking at how are we really running the business. And the first start was internal consumption. We had 45 licensees servicing the campus community, and that just doesn't make any sense to me. That why we need 45 companies. Most of them could still produce a t-shirt. So we started doing analytics that way and really narrowed down our list. Now we're down to 3 vendors and doing really well. The volume of business has grown significantly, but we're managing it a lot more tightly. That then led to other successes. So I started being a lot more strategic and working with our partners at CLC to be able to really gather data and analyze the program. We moved into product category management. So we did a mass exclusive with Knights Apparel. They had 80%, 85% of our business. I already had a partner. Do I need 4 or 5 others outside of that? So we started negotiating smarter contracts, started doing PCM things with headwear, managing it tightly there, and then started getting more advanced with apparel. And 2019 we signed a primary apparel agreement with Hanes brand, now Unrival Teamwear, and that's really helped us grow significantly. So I'm really proud of the levels that those have done, because I really look at licensing as a partnership, and if we're partnering with brands, we want to make sure they're invested in us, but we're also working with them. So really making sure what makes sense in our program, and making sure we're able to service our retail partners and get product out there, high quality product out there for our consumers, so that they can rely on things, whether it's, there's been all kinds of supply disruptions over the last several years, and having partnerships in place really helps make a difference for that.
Yeah, for sure. You've mentioned the analytics. I know you've been doing some research lately. I think you published some reports late last year of some stuff, especially within the Power 4 conferences, or Autonomous 4, or whatever we're calling them these days. So was there anything that really just jumped out to you from that work that you did that was a trend, or maybe something that you observed from that?
Well, I think one thing that really jumped out to a lot of people was the surprise of how big or not so big the team outfitters are as far as a university's program. So we get a lot of love. We do love those team outfitters, but as far as where the revenue is coming from, the average is really between 10 and 15% for most institutions. Now, there's some outliers that are really, really high.
Sure.
But the average, when you look at the autonomy conference members, it was closer to 12, 15%. So, go away with the high 15, 85% of your business is being done by everybody else but them. So I think that surprised a lot of people because everybody assumes it's the team outfitters that drive the business, and from a licensing perspective, that's just not always the case.
Yeah, that's a great insight. I kind of noticed that too as I was looking through, and then I noticed a few of the partners in that space have changed even in that last year.
Yeah.
So that's a constant change of who's landing where and what they're working on. Speaking of conferences, Cincinnati's a new addition to the Big 12 starting last year. Now, so there's been a lot of conference realignment, and that was Cincinnati's fourth conference since the turn of the century, if I'm remembering correctly. Big 12 American Big East Conference USA. So to those licensing directors or retailers or licensees that may be listening and working somehow on a conference realignment project, what advice would you give them as someone who's been through it a few times?
I think every change is an opportunity just to engage and rethink of who you are and how you're connecting with your constituency. You're not changing who you are, your brand necessarily, but you're exposing yourself to a different marketplace. So embrace that. I started doing this when we moved into the Big East. I created a little matrix that helped me socialize all the Big East licensing directors, and I've kind of kept that. So actually, I started doing that. That led to conference rep programs at ICLA. We started moving that through other conferences, just as a way to help socialize both myself with those conference partners, but also the rest of everybody else, is connecting more relationships. That way you can learn what's important to those new institution peers when they're traveling to you, or you're traveling to your teams are traveling to them, or your constituents are traveling to them. You can find trends that are fun. Going into the Big 12, obviously a lot more Southwestern, Western. So what's different about them, and when they come to here, let them know a little bit about what's different here in Cincinnati. Yeah,
that's really great when you're such a big conference to have that connection. Yeah. Really almost coast to coast from different peers. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the conference rep program through ICLA. So you've been involved at many different levels across our organization for many years. Of course, was president back in 2013 and 2014, and have served on committees and many different roles, board and past president, all the roles. Just talk a little bit about your work through ICLA, maybe some of the involvement, some of the relationships that have been important to you through that organization.
Well, I've been doing this for quite a while, and Cindy Van Meter actually recruited me to try and run for the board while she was president. So that's what led me to, fortunately, being elected to join the board and serve. But I've been on a variety of committees, as you know, whether it's presenting or on the board or planning or different things like that. And honestly, it's really led to some of the best friends I've got in life. There's a handful that I talk to on a weekly basis, a couple that I've multiple times a week, that have really become close personal friends. And you don't find that very often, especially when you're, because we're not like today in the office together, but we're close enough and we've gone through a lot of things together. Life, not just industry work-wise, but life together, that it's really been a meaningful impact. So I think for me personally, because I hope I've been as good to them as they've been to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can say personally, I'm always you're reaching out. There's certain times that you'll just reach out and check in. How's it going? Happy birthday, things like that. But it's always good to hear from you and others around the industry. So it's a great community that we have here. So glad to hear that has been an impact to you, not only recently, but throughout the years. Taking a quick turn, we're going to go NIL for a second, a topic that we talk so much about it on so many of our seminars and webinars and different things. And in fact, while we're about to talk about NIL, let's also remind everyone that Marty's joining us today on the Sewing Concepts Hot Market Hotline, because our NIL guys and gals do make a difference on, hey, is this team going to make the hot market this year? Is Sewing Concepts going to be hurrying to get that flag to you at the championship game? So I think that's a good time to thank them again for helping us with the podcast. But we're in the fourth academic year since NIL deals became permissible. You've seen all the changes. You've been quoted as an expert in Christy Dosh's book, the NIL Playbook, so definitely want to throw that out there. But how would you define kind of where we are now and then maybe where we going from here?
I think from the start of conference realignment to NIL change is just constant. That's the one constant you hear that a lot in life, but you see that living it out every year in college sports. And I look at changes. People don't like changes. Change is just different. And that's really all it is. It's different. What's the new normal? And the new normal in NIL is almost daily. What's important. And I think the biggest thing for me, the takeaway is that opportunities to educate others, both the community and broadly, but also our student athletes. It's really a difficult marketplace for them to get into. When you look at the analytics of it, it's important to them. But when you're looking at your respective university brands, it's not a significant number. Industry-wide, it's less than 1% of royalty income. So it's a small dot of the great big thing. Now, it's important. What NIL really is about is the athlete endorsing and engaging with the corporate partner to promote the corporate partner's products, not necessarily the university's brand. And I think there's a lot of confusion out there on what the differences are and why schools are now starting to pay the athletes directly. Well, schools are paying the athletes for the school's use of their NIL, right? To promote the teams, promote the events and all the things. It's not necessarily to promote the licensed product. It might be a pathway to help them work with a corporate partner, whether it's one of the team outfitters or it's sewing concepts, flags, right? But that depends on the value that those third-party partners want to have that athlete endorse their specific product. Less on the product itself, I think, the co-brand of the product itself.
Yeah, it's exciting now to see some schools putting in a way to kind of connect those dots too, where in the past we weren't able to do that, or we weren't able really to help. It was like educate and then good luck. So it's fun to see a lot of things happening now that really benefits the athlete.
Yeah, I think we are actually doing, ICLA did a panel presentation, and I remember the year. I know it was at the Hilton Anatole in Dallas, and I was on the session. It was replay photos. Kevin Stempke was there. We had Scott Beersby, who's now general counsel for the NCAA. He was on the panel with us. So we were talking about, that session was about using athletes within product. And the time back then was, if you had more than one athlete, had like 3 athletes or more within the frame and your university brand, you could allow them to have it appear on a product because it wasn't an individual's likeness that you were promoting. And that was based on the NCAA bylaws and all those things. I think it's 12.2.2, whatever the bylaw was at the time. Now we're getting more sophisticated because it's exciting because younger people are better at social media influencers. So we've got a lot of athletes that are engaged in the space, but quite frankly, we have other students that aren't athletes that are really good at engaging in this type of thing. So when you're looking at policies, not to be the policy wonk, but there's rules that we need to have rules for a reason. It's important to make sure you're consistent, whether it's a student athlete or it's a student body president or just a chemistry student that just happens to be really good at engaging on social media.
Yeah, it's definitely it's great to see those that can really take it and capitalize on it, and hopefully there will be more of those, and they can teach each other, train each other, and see where that goes over the next few years. So I wanted to mention one other thing from your research that just jumped out to me because it's a thing we all talk about, and sometimes we don't get into the weeds of how much time it takes. Is 22 hours per month spent on legal matters in licensing offices. Did that shock you that it was 22 hours per month? I mean, you think 40 hours a week, so roughly 60 hours a month. So 22 hours out of 160 on legal matters. Was that shocking to you?
I think it was shocking to be the level of some schools versus others. Holistically, they didn't when I started, because I'm putting the report together. I'm seeing all the data coming in from everybody.
Sure.
The end result didn't surprise me, but the amount that I see from some certain campuses, certainly I know what I have to manage here on a regular basis, but my scope is not just licensing, right? So I do corporate partnerships and other things like that in the university side house. That's part of why I've got other things in the legal bucket that are flowing through. But from a licensing perspective, it's not surprising me because now you're starting to look at other, with NIL and these other things, contracts are starting to be a lot more free flowing, as it were. I wish
Yeah.
it would slow down with the legal side of it,
Yeah.
so like court cases, but I don't see that slowing up anytime soon.
Yeah, and it's really kind of, mentioning the NIL side of that, it really kind of blurs the lines a little bit between legal. Is this legal or is this marketing? I mean, it's a contract,
Right.
but it's marketing and revenue generating too, so those lines get kind of blurry sometimes.
And I guess that gets back to we represent the university, not the athlete. But we also want to make sure that the athlete understands what they're doing, and I can't advise the athlete. In fact, I've had state laws that say I'm not allowed to talk to the athlete.
Yeah.
We actually have a state law that says only certain student groups are allowed to use the university's marks. So we've got different things like that we have to manage the process. So creating some structure to make sure we at least go through things that when the athlete's coming to us with an opportunity for brand engagement, they're asking for the university's approval to do it. We can make sure a couple things. Are they a corporate partner? Does the valuation make sense? I want to see the contract. Not that I need to know what the contract is, but I have to understand what they're really asking and they're paying the athlete to do, because it's representative of our brand. So I have to look at it from the lens of what are they doing and how is it bumping into our brand, what the requirements are with our brand versus with theirs, and provide the team that manages the athlete side of it enough support to help them educate the athletes the right way.
Yeah, for sure. So talk a little bit about some of your other responsibilities on the corporate partnership side, just high level for those that may be, more focused on licensing specifically. Just talk about some of the other things that pass across your desk these days.
Well, we just finished Welcome Week, so we had a handful of groups come to campus that everybody sees them. You don't do a pop-up, so we had Walmart Plus here last week to promote Walmart Plus subscription service to students. We've had a couple other groups promoting vitamins or different things like that. And normally it was, in the past, it was just, we'll pay a small fee to pay for access to a table on campus. Those days are over, right? The university's trying to be more strategic about how we're managing access to our brand, our community, as most institutions are really looking for ways to generate incremental revenue. And growth on that sponsorship side is really starting to be more and more important as we move forward. One, it protects our brands, and it helps us monetize them in an appropriate way. And companies know, they'll pay for it if you're smart enough to ask them to pay for it. But if you're willing to just say, hey, I'll do this for the free pizzas or whatever the thing that the free coffee that the student groups are looking for. And that's historically what they've done. Is a student group will go out or an administrative group will go out and they need some budget or something covered for their event, and they'll get a company to pay for it, and they'll stick their logo all over it and say thank you for the free whatever. But the value is much greater than that as long as we're willing to assess that.
Yeah, that's great, and I know you're leading some industry talk around that too. So that's fun to see that grow and really become a deeper part of the conversation. I know you focused on building your team and impacting students. I get your report every month. I love to look through that on LinkedIn of what's going on. So talk a little bit about your team, some of the internships that you've put in place, and just brag on your folks a little bit.
Well, I'll start with my colleague, May. She's now the one who's been with me the longest. Most of you might have remembered Meredith Cushmo, now Bernie. She got married, so that gave her grace when her husband was moving to Arkansas that she could stay here and work remote from Arkansas. So unfortunately, Meredith moved on, but she's still in the industry. She's working for BSN. So I'm pleased that we have that connection, that touch point still. But my colleague May is now the one that has been with me the longest, and she actually started as an intern in our office. So she graduated, and we had an opportunity to expand the office to 3 with me and Meredith here. And May was the leading candidate, partly because we knew her and she had a lot of experience working with us through her internship year. But I think within the office proper, we've kind of managed the last handful of years, 18 internship experience. If I really count, including some of our licensee partners that hire students from the university, not necessarily working for this office, but from the university, where it's well over 30 students that have had some type of internship experience through some connection with the licensing office. But I think we're around 18 that have a direct touch point with us on a regular basis.
That's great that you're plugging them in, getting them in some experience, and I'm sure vouching for them too when they need somebody to say, hey, yeah, I worked with them. They worked with me and they were great. For
sure. Yeah.
Well, hey,
Marty, it's fun to see that grow.
Yeah.
It's fun to see that grow. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun to see them, like you mentioned, Meredith down the road doing other things, and you can always look back and remember the times that y'all worked together as well. So,
yeah.
Well, Marty, appreciate you joining us today. That's all I've got for you. That's all we've got time for here today on the ICLA podcast. So great to see you. I will see you down the road, my friend.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Once again, I'd like to thank our guest, Marty Ludwig, for joining us on the Sewing Concepts Hot Market Hotline, taking some time out of his busy day at the University of Cincinnati to join us on the ICLA podcast, Licensed to Lead Business Behind the Brand. This episode is brought to you by Old Hat Creative, the nation's leader in sports creative. Looking to take your brand to the next level? Old Hat has been partnering with college and professional athletics organizations for 2 decades, helping more than 200 teams elevate their brands. From logo design and branding to facility graphics, video production, research, web development, and more, they've got you covered. Old Hat Creative, your ultimate sports branding partner. For more information, visit oldhatcreative.com or follow them at Old Hat Creative.